You're watching Every Day's a Saturday, USCC veteran. Let's go, baby. And here's your host, Brian. What's going on, friends and family? Welcome back to another great day, another great interview. This one's going to be very unique. We actually have two guests here today, and they're doing some amazing things, so I can't wait to have them on and talk all about what they got going on. But before we do, I hope everybody out there, you have an amazing year. If you're not, and you're struggling out there and you need some help, call the Crisis Lifeline, 988-PRESS-1. Try to get in touch with someone that can hopefully direct you into resources, or maybe get you some kind of help that you may need. Or, hey, reach out to your brothers and sisters. You know, my email is always here down below. You can email me anytime, and I can try to help you the best that I can as well. But what is you guys drinking in you guys' coffee cup? I got some Cash Coffee, and you guys definitely should go check out some Cash Coffee. It is some really great coffee, great flavors. They have nutrition supplements. They have great apparel, and they're just a great company in general, all about taking care of the community, and they're very much supporters of veterans and first responders. All right, so for our next guest, guys, they're out there doing some amazing things, and I think this is somewhere that our military kind of fails a lot of us, and I'm only speaking from my time, which is 20 years ago. But the transition from when you're serving to when you get out, it's really hard for a lot of us, because while we're in, we're taught to be warriors, taught to, train to failure is no option, right? And all these kinds of things. But when you get out, my gosh, failure becomes a lot, right? But the thing about it is they don't really teach us how to kind of navigate and make those failures where you can actually turn those into, non-failures, and you can actually be successful from them. But these guys are doing amazing things. I won't keep them waiting much longer. We have Rob Sarver, who's a Navy SEAL veteran, and Alex Gendzier. They're here to talk about their book, Warrior to Civilian, and tell us all about themselves. Here we go. We got Alex and Rob. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Can't wait to hear all about you guys. Kind of what we'll do a little bit is we'll kind of start off and let you guys talk about yourselves a little bit, where you grew up, how life kind of, navigated you basically to writing this book. And then we'll talk more in depth about the book itself. But whoever wants to start first, go ahead and start off and tell us about yourself. Is that Rob? Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah. Thanks, Brian. And thanks to all the listeners there, for tuning into this. So, my background: I grew up in a military family. My father was a B-52 pilot for 28 years. So I have moved everywhere. I have moved 14 times.
Jeez, yeah, that was me as a kid too. Gosh, dang.
Yeah, it was during Strategic Air Command back in the 80s, the Cold War. That you move every 2 to 3 years. So just kind of rack up all the moves, but.
You got good at adapting, overcoming, then I guess, huh?
Oh yeah, well, packing too, and leaving everything in boxes for the next move. That's that was a common
thing as a kid, man.
Yeah. So I actually went to Virginia Military Institute for a year, and then I transferred, got into the Naval Academy. From there, did 9 years active, majority of the SEAL teams, did 7 deployments, got out, went through a veterans program at Goldman Sachs. Found myself doing real estate down in Dallas, Texas. Went back and did a master's. Found myself very far behind my peer group, and I thought, the MBA would help me kind of bridge that gap between the two worlds, and it did. But after 2.5 years at Goldman, phenomenal company, but just I didn't see the trajectory that I wanted. So I went off and did some other entrepreneurship roles. I've done a lot of executive positions, and kind of fast forwarding, meeting Alex 5 years ago when we were doing private equity. I was a director over there at a credit shop, and Alex was serving as the general counsel. And I'll let him go first before we segue in how did the book happen. But right now it's Alex and I are kind of leading forward with Hero's Journey, and based off the book. So we do a lot of consulting. We help companies and we help individuals with making this transition. We help companies kind of set up these programs. So, Alex, please.
I'm the civilian counterpart of this team. And I came to this project when my older son, I've got two boys that are a central part of my life, told me he wanted to join the military, and his path then changed. And he fought his way into the Naval Academy, and he is now out in the Navy. And in that process, it had dawned on me that I had wanted to serve at a few points, and it didn't happen. And this was an opportunity for great reflection and thinking about how I can make a contribution. On a very personal level, I wanted him to have something for when he gets out, because I think he will, I have great faith in my sons, and I think he will be successful in a career, wherever it takes him, however it goes. And I think he'll be in for a while. This is his passion, this is his calling, is to serve and protect those that cannot protect themselves in our country. And I wanted him to have something on the way out, because it's probably the case that I'm no longer here. So Rob and I met at work, developed a connection, a friendship, started talking about life transitions. And I thought, why don't we produce a memo for my older son about the 10 things you got to know when you get out? And then the mission became, in researching how to do that, our sense of mission and opportunity to serve here became much, much broader. So while each of Rob and I have had a personal inspiration to serve veterans, this became much bigger. And I would add, because Rob would never speak about himself, that every year since he's gotten out, he has made his own contribution by mentoring and helping transition 10 to 15 veterans a year, which, if you know what's involved, is an enormous commitment. Each of us, in other words, brought a very personal sense of duty and obligation, and then our sense of partnership and how to serve and write something bigger manifested from it.
That's outstanding. Now, so Rob, I got to imagine, you're instrumental in, you served and then you got out, right? So how was your transition, man? I mean, when you got out, was it an easier transition for you, or did you feel like you struggled when you got out? Like, a lot of veterans do, like they feel like they lose their sense of purpose, or, those kind of things. Now, did you go through all that, or did you have a little bit better support system?
Yeah, no, I mean, I had an amazing support system, all the mentors in the world to help me find the job. It was all the other things that I did not want to discuss, and I internalized that I was fine when I started hitting all these problems. And my transition, probably took over 2 years, and I'd say probably even longer, because when I finally had the realization that no, there were some PTSD issues there. There's a lot that I've been through: loss of identity, loss of community, loss of purpose. I had my own challenges, right? Went through a divorce, wasn't totally happy with my job. Like I said, Goldman's a great company, but the work just wasn't like fulfilling what I was doing. Right. So, I hit all these things. And then, I had to go through two programs, two professional programs, one with a hospital and one kind of like a veterans advocacy program for like almost 12 months. But it really wasn't until I met a Vietnam era psychologist who's been working with combat vets for about 40 years. And he was tied everything together for me. And that's when things like really started to click. And I really defined the new balance, the new normal of, what this transition would be and how to look for new purpose. So yes, that's a very, very long answer, but all those things came, they just kind of came at different times, like the rogue wave at night, right? Hitting you.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. Well, that's perfect. I mean, now, Alex, what kind of things have you been hearing in the veteran world that started maybe concerning you? Because you're a dad, right? And you love your sons, obviously, and and you want to see them be successful. Have you been hearing a lot of the 22 a day type things, and just the struggles that the veterans go through? Is that what kind of what kind of things, like, I guess, were you hearing before you decided to get yourself involved and feel like, you know what, I don't want my son to go through this?
Yeah, phenomenal question. Let me distract for 1 second. The
Sure.
published stats out of the VA show on average 21 to 22 veteran suicides a day. And that number changes a little bit every year, and the VA publishes a study about that every year. However, there is good evidence that that number is more like 44 a day when you
That's what I've heard.
when you include the indirect but very clear impact of damage and sabotage that leads to death. So this is an epidemic. We do not view veterans and do not portray veterans as a troubled group, but there is trouble in this community that has to be addressed, and it's up to us to do something about it. To answer your question, I think that we saw immediately, and what caused the sense of this bigger vision was, of course, distress in the transition. But what we saw quickly by our interviews and research was that there were patterns that were repeating themselves that could be dissected and understood at a higher level. And if we did that right in a way that was practical, we could help people. And we ended up viewing veteran transition to civilian life, based on what I just said, as an enormous life transition. So if you want a good metaphor, it's like stepping off a cliff from the known, comfortable world, even though it's challenging, into a great unknown. And for anyone that has been through a soul-challenging life transition, that is like stepping off a cliff into an abyss of darkness. That's not to dramatize it. That's to describe the feeling inside. For many, not all, but for many. That describes Rob and my own life transitions, and our own challenges and heartaches and transitions in this way fueled our sense of desire to understand and to take that and apply it and unpack it and present it in a way that's helpful. And that is because on the ground level, there are ways to do this transition that are more effective than others. There are examples and lessons to be learned from veterans and their incredible stories that can be put to use and offered to others, including spouses. We treat spouses as important in the equation as the veteran. We can come back to that big topic.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
And there are examples of things really not to do. And we say this with great humility, because although I think Rob and I have walked some of this path, Rob has walked it as a combat veteran, we do not pretend to have all the answers. We feel like we have a degree of humility from our own human challenges. The summary point here is we took these amazing stories, these stories of tragedy and triumph, saw patterns, and felt a duty to share them in a way that was practical.
That's great. You know, I look at every situation as it's a tool. Like, we all have tools, and some of us have tools that others don't. And, you know, this is just another tool you guys are providing for someone to put in their toolbox. And hey, we don't always need these tools, but sometimes you come across that job where you do require that tool, and then you have something to at least say, hey, you know what? That's right. I remember them talking about this. Let me grab back and reach for that. You know what I mean? And maybe it'll help me through what I need to get through. Now, something that you touched on is the spouses, right? That's, I think a big part of the succession of people that can kind of get through some of their mental battles and stuff like that is having a good support system in place. Family, friends, people that are more or less not there to fuel the fire, but put it out, right? And start, hey man, you know, or, you know, because I think that a lot of times you can get in a bad relationship that actually fuels your fire, right? And makes everything far worse than what it needed to be, versus someone that might be able to kind of tame that fire, maybe not put it out, but not allow it to just uproar and go crazy, right? Because I think that a lot of us just got that inner flame, man, and we have that 0 to 60 that, you know, because we were taught in the military, you just fly off the hinge if someone, doesn't complete something. We all knife hand and lose our stuff, man. But yeah, I think that a support system is a big percent into the success sometimes and the recovery, right? And like your son, at least he has parents that you're already understanding stuff that a lot of people don't take the time to understand. And that's probably what needs to be provided too, is we need to start thinking about the families of the veterans as well. How do we start training them to deal with these stuff, to not fuel their fire or push or start triggering their triggers, and or how do we start getting away from the triggers that make them lose their mind or put them into that where they're pacing around and losing their mind. I'm only speaking because this is me. I've gone there. I'm that 0 to 60 dude. There's things I've had to learn to kind of try to, I'm talking to my kids. I'm not talking to another Marine, you know what I mean? Those kind of things. My first 2 kids, they really had it rough, and they're adults now. We can talk about it and reflect, and I can work on it now because I can own a lot of my mistakes with them. But gosh damn, if I would have had a better knowing and stuff, like what was wrong with me, because imagine I was getting out in the year 2004, so the war was still really going on. They didn't have time to think about the guys getting out. They had a war, they had a mission, and we are mission focused in the military. And if I'm not contributing to the mission, I'm not really that important to them anymore. So that's, I got out at a time where there was no transitioning because everybody was deployed, so it was very skeleton crew at the time of trying to check out and get out of there. And I was trying to get the hell out. I mean, at that point in time, there was a lot of stuff going on in my family, and it just was, and for me, it was a rough landing. And then like I've said, every reaction and all that stuff, my reactions were horrible to things. So, my kids just saw me react to a lot of things that wasn't their fault, but my reaction made them feel some kind of way, right? My reaction scared them because, I'm just that, and maybe it wasn't something they did. It was just a situation that their mother put them in or something, but I reacted to it.
You bring up a lot of good stuff. I mean, so with the spouses, and I completely agree with you, having a structure in place to reduce that stress would be great. But one thing Alex and I, a framework that we give within the book is Heracles circles of concern. And if we go back to everything we did in the military, right? And I know the SEAL teams love to capitalize on this, but it's the whole military abroad. It's team, teammate, self, right? We're always put ourselves last. Then you can put mission in front of that, then you put God out there in front of that. But let's just talk team, teammate, self. When we looked at this and we looked at Heracles circles of concern, you have to flip that paradigm. And you have to be selfish for a moment just to have the self-realization that you might need that help, because I absolutely agree with you. To function within the family, have the support network. But if you're not healthy, then that dynamic doesn't help. It doesn't work.
Right. And
in Heracles, the first concentric circle is the self. And you have to be healthy. You have to be whole to contribute to that family, which is that next circle. Then the nexus of families make up those communities. And that's really what we're striving to achieve again, is finding a community, a culture, a purpose. So that's one thing that one framework, that Alex and I kind of put there for folks to realize that we were brave enough to answer the call to go serve the Constitution and serve a role within the military. And we walked through that arena, right? Whatever that crucible it is. I believe that's what the Marines call it, the crucible.
Crucible, yep.
But why would we not walk back through the crucible again or into the arena again to fix ourselves?
Right.
And that was the question that we posed back to people, is like, you've already done this. Like, you're coming back from the unknown world. You will be changed. And as Alex calls it, stepping off the cliff into the abyss. Like, if you don't prepare for that, like, you are going to be lost in that arena. You can be lost in the abyss.
100%, man. And that's why I think you want to try to give everybody some armor, right? So when they make that fall, it's a little bit light. It might hurt a little bit, but it doesn't have to be so damaging. and
Exactly.
I think that to go through things is not a bad thing. That's the one thing. Sometimes going through something rough is important
Yep.
because it could make you a better person. I mean, there's so many things that can come out of it depending on how you take that. Someone gives you a lemon, you can make lemonade out of it. What you can do what you want, but it's how you take that and you make whatever it is out of it. You know what I mean?
I absolutely agree. I mean, some lessons in life have to be learned, but there are some that we should try to avoid.
Right. Absolutely. No. And that's just it. And hey, man, try to avoid this situation and don't do this, and some people just got to go learn for themselves and fall flat on their face, and then they're like, oh, sheesh, that woke me up. But these kind of things are great though, because we got to start talking about it, right? Like a lot of us have always been told to just suck it up, move on, and I agree to some of that to an extent, right? Because we do got to adapt and overcome, but there's a part of us that has to still get to that healthy place, because like you said before, we all have to find a little bit of selfishness, and we've been told our whole life, don't be selfish, right? But you have to have a healthy selfish. There's a healthy selfish, right. I think, right? And that's, you got to be able to take care of yourself, right? Because we're absolutely nothing to anybody if we're not healthy ourselves, right? We need to be the best versions of ourselves, and that sometimes takes a little selfishness. Take a little time for yourself. Got to go for a 15-minute walk. Go read a book. Do these little things that, take off your, throw your cell phone to the side, just these little things. We got to be able to find that and feel okay to have that selfish part without feeling bad.
I completely agree. And I'll pass this over to Alex too, because we talk about this. Like in the military, we just put the heavy rucksack on and just kept going because we had to for the mission. Yep. But there's no reason today that now that we're out, we have to continue to carry that rucksack. Like we can put it down and get help. So Alex, you want to comment on any of that?
Yeah. I mean, the shepherd cannot take care of his flock if he's not okay.
Absolutely.
It's real simple. I would go back and just add a couple of things. I mean, I think, Brian, you've hit many nails on the head. Our emphasis on spouses comes from a couple of basic places. For folks that have spouses or significant others, and we refer to that as spouses, folks can't go do what they do in the military. Spouses are not just the backbone, but they're an equal part in this journey. And frankly, the transition that they go through and their children go through, the children of veterans, is as significant a life transition as that for the veteran. Mm. If the two of them view that together and that this is a team sport, then the challenges they will face as a couple and separately will be much more manageable. So it was actually a friend and teammate of Rob's that said to us, because we had our book reviewed every month to see if it was on target, you guys don't cover spouses. What's the matter with you? And so we then spent the better part of 6 months researching this, interviewing dozens of spouses. As an aside, for this project, which has been going on for 5 years, we've interviewed several hundred people and read everything available. But the focus on spouses is, of course, for the veteran, but it's also for the spouses themselves. They deserve it. I think the role of spouses, friends, and community is one of the essential ways that folks manage this transition, better or worse. I would also say that what you touched on earlier, not to belabor it, is, Brian, is essential. We had two very inspirational, short, powerful messages from folks that had a big impact on our book. And one of them was, in the military, you train intensely 10 to 15 hours for every hour of the mission. What have you done to train you veterans for this transition to life in the civilian world? That's a tough love question, but it's a valid one. This is a transition. This is a mission that's very different. As another guy said, it is no less challenging And that's an impressive comment from a guy who led folks in combat for 20 years. And his point was that the challenge in the civilian world is no less difficult. It's just on different terrain. You have to think about it in these ways to manage this process effectively.
You said a really good quote earlier. I don't know if it was on while we were on the video, but by George Washington, go ahead and make that quote again. That was a really great quote. I don't know.
Yeah, he said, "A country will be judged by how it treats its veterans."
And that couldn't be better put, man. I mean, here's the other thing. We as veterans can be super instrumental in our own communities, right? Which we live in every day. And we could be instrumental in bringing our communities together, right? We learned how to put differences aside. We learned how to fight together for one common mission. And I imagine that when you live in a community, we all have a common goal too. We all want our kids to grow up in a safe environment, in a safe place. And, but then you got everybody that they hate each other for no apparent reason. They threw this flag up. They think about this. They're wearing this color today. I don't like that side. It's just, I think that there's a lot more that we can do as veterans by getting involved in the communities, right? And starting to interact with communities. Like, we can start our own little nonprofits and things like that, and things that start bringing the communities together and having little community gatherings. I think there's a lot more that we can do, right? I think some of us, when we become 100%, permanent, a lot of us just, that's it. It doesn't have to be, right? It really doesn't have to be. I look at it as I get paid to do whatever I want to do. You know what I mean? So, if I'm over there, reading the paper, I'm getting paid today. You know what I mean? I'm like, hey, drinking a coffee, I'm, getting paid. But I also am the kind of person where I do try to find that. That's how, another reason why I started podcasting, right? It was like, hey, need something to kind of have that sense of I have something to do, or I have, it gave me a sense of feeling again, man. It gave me a sense of like, hey, and the feedback I get from others, right? That also fuels the fire. Like, hey, man, I love your show, love what you're doing, keep going. Those kind of things keep motivating me. So I think that a lot of us veterans, we get out, all of a sudden we're not doing what we were doing. We're not playing with these cool weapons, and we always had a place we had to be, right. All the time. There was a schedule. There was basically, and 0-5 formation, or, there's always something going on, and you had a place to go. Once you get out, it's like, you're like a fish out there in this big ass ocean. Like, oh my gosh, I think that we just need that help to kind of, because there was, when I got out, there was a little bit of some classes, but I don't even remember them. That's how effective they were, right? I don't even remember the classes because they were very short. And do you think at that point in time, I'm like 20-something years old, I'm even thinking like, oh yeah, I'm about to be a veteran, and I'm going to go through all this stuff. No, I'm not thinking like that.
You're hitting on a common theme that when we spoke with folks, that same mentality, that same age, we all go through this three-day TAPS course, but everybody said in hindsight they wish they had a book or a resource like this and picked it up and just spent a few hours reviewing it. If you don't want to read the whole thing, just get to the meat of the chapters. They said they'd be so much further down, a different station in life or a different trajectory in life had they just taken a little hindsight and done some research.
Right. They send us into a lecture, right? Like, it's like we're sitting there with an instructor or teacher, mm-hmm. and most of us fucking probably hated school, right? Like the whole time. So you're just like, bro, I was doodling, or now they got cell phones. So, I mean, who knows? I mean, while you're going through that whole thing,
Brian,
that's the whole hard part, bro. Like, are you like literally listening when they're telling you like, hey, you need to go make sure you get this job, whatever? I honestly, I don't even remember what the hell they told me. Like, I just don't. I can't even comment on it.
it's funny you bring that up, because Alex and I, we talked about this, and the last thing anybody getting out is to be told again what to do. So especially from an officer and a lawyer, right? Like, why are you telling me this? Like, I've listened to orders enough. I don't want this. But so that, and I think it was Alex's idea, like, well, to use veterans' voices to tell the story. So yes, we present the facts, we present, the checklist and the frameworks and everything to think about, but every chapter is filled with veterans' voices on things they wish they'd done or the struggles that they went through. So it's not Alex and I, extolling everything that we've been through from success and failure. These are real people, real veterans. So, trust the people that have walked before you.
That's outstanding. I want to start getting into more talking about the book itself. Before we do, we'll go ahead and take a quick break. And then when we get back, we'll go and talk more in depth about the actual book itself. Welcome to Veteran Voice Radio, where we honor the brave and celebrate their stories through music. Tune in to two incredible stations, Ranger Rockwave and Simplified Country. On Ranger Rockwave, experience the raw energy of alternative rock featuring talented musicians who are veterans and military family members. Their powerful stories and unforgettable tunes will inspire you and keep you rocking. Switch over to Simplified Country, where the heart of country music meets the spirit of service. Enjoy heartfelt ballads and toe-tapping tunes from veterans and their families sharing their journey through song. Join a community that honors those who serve. Veteran Voice Radio, music with a mission. Discover Ranger Rockwave and Simplified Country at veteranvoiceradio.com, or you can also download the app on Apple or Google and let the stories of our heroes resonate through your speakers. All right. So we'll go ahead and start talking more about the book itself. You guys really put a lot into this book. 5 years in the making. You guys did a lot of interviews. You guys put a lot of thought into this book. This is not just a book that was written overnight. So yeah, go ahead and let's. That was the wrong thing. Look at me. All right, so let's go ahead and talk more about the book itself.
So when we started this, as Alex said, we started writing, we started the memo, and then let's test our thesis here a little bit. And very soonly on, through two contacts, we ended up in a phenomenal one-on-one with General McChrystal. And Stan looked at this and he said, "Okay, you guys got something here." And then we talked about the framework of the hero's journey and Homer's Odysseus. And he kind of stopped us. He's like, hold on, don't do the touchy-feely, but the hero's journey is every veteran's story. It is every veteran's journey. So when you go look at that framework, and we don't have to dive too deep into all that, but the call to adventure, finding the mentor, leaving the universal or leaving the known world for the unknown, for the unknown universe. So, but he also told us at the end of that conversation, if you don't make this practical, it's just going to sit on the shelf and collect dust. So that was, and like timeline wise, kind of about 9 to 12 months into us looking at this project, that's what really drove us for the next 4 years to go find the best research, go talk to the best doctors, go talk to, what's the best out there for psychedelics, TBI, PTSD, physical injury, moral injury. We went and tracked down Dr. Josh Cotton, he's looked at like 300,000 resumes. I'm like, how do you take everything that I've done and put it in, and like, where would I actually fit? So I'm not talking about going and doing a personality test, but like actually really from the experts, what you needed to do to prep for a job. So Alex, anything to add on kind of how we got this kind of moving?
I think most important, I think what we've done is create a guide, a field manual for every phase of the transition, from preparing advance to reintegrating.
Hold on real quick, Alex. Hold on. Sorry, man. You're cutting out really bad.
Yeah.
We might need to give you a second to catch up. Looks like you still might be bugging out. We might need you to exit and come back in maybe for a second. Let's see.
What would you like to do?
All right, you might be okay now. Let's see if you can go ahead and. Sorry, I cut you off. It just was cutting out so bad we wouldn't have even caught any of it.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I think you're starting to. It seems like you're starting to bug out maybe a little bit. Maybe if you go out and then come back in, it might fix itself.
Okay, we'll do.
As I said that, though, it seems like it's actually better. Go ahead. It's fine. I think we're okay, Alex.
Clears up. Yeah.
So
there we go. Go ahead. Sorry.
It's a field manual, meaning a complete guide. So we cover preparing in advance, theory of framework reintegration from the Vietnam and therapist, Dr. Mike Lick, who is very innovative and very successful. We have chapters that bring latest, most cutting edge, most practical advice about healing the wounds of war, whether visible or invisible. The central, most important topic is how to find a new identity, a new purpose in life. And there are frameworks for that. It's not one size fits all. But without refinding purpose, everything else becomes a lot tougher. There's a very extensive chapter on how to think about finding a new job or career. There are other chapters that deal with what it means to be a civilian warrior, why the phrase "you have to fight inside the wire just as much as outside" is a powerful way to look at things. And then there's a very extensive chapter for spouses and children. And so in this way, we hope to cover and every phase of it and have something for everyone in a way that's practical, and the way General McChrystal told us we had to be. What we would add is this is not a book for folks who have just gotten out. We have found that Vietnam veterans and others who have a sense of their transition being a part of their life, it's not something that comes and goes, that we all face this in life transitions, but certainly veterans and their spouses who have been out for quite a while have found it useful. And so that's a bit of an overview of the book that supplements the main points that Rob said.
Nice. Now, I got to imagine, just like anything else, did you guys run into struggles writing the book? What do you think your biggest challenges were finishing this book?
Oh, wow. Let's talk about the medical side of it, the PTSD side. So, you go and you look for the best research out there, right? So it's, you comb the universe, you through connections or everybody just to find the right doctor. And then, you go through the process of interviewing it but we also have to take that information, distill it down to where we can understand it.
Right.
So that was probably one of the more lengthy chapters, or
it's how do we break this down in a way that everybody can understand it? Because yes,
right,
there's a lot of scientific terms in there that we just like, so I mean, something they always taught us in the Marine Corps is you got to teach it basically potato head style, which means you got to bring it down for the for the most potato head style person, right? So
and some of the stuff, some of the stuff Alex and we had to read 2-3 times. It was like reading a medical journal.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah.
How do we get, so we talk about the TPI and PTSD. So that's where we do kind of tell some side stories about what is the the pounds per square inch, the PSI that we're really absorbing, like firing a Carl Gustav. Okay, one PSI can like shatter glass if it hits it right. I mean, when you're firing that Carl Gustav, that's almost like 30 PSI. Wow. So what we found, and this, you can only fire 6 of these at a time, but actually, Ryan, when you were in, that restriction was not there. So guys would get up and just keep firing the Carl Gustav rounds, and it's causing micro abrasions or micro tears in our organs.
Wow.
We had no idea.
Right.
We had absolutely no idea. Then guys, you get later along in your career, you get violent headaches, you get disruption in sleep, irritability. You don't know what it's coming from. It's like
ringing of the ears.
It's all these micro blast pressures it is different from CTE, like the NFL. It's very different from that. That is a very hard concuss or concussion hit,
right?
Where you can go get healing. We're talking about if you're a breacher or even shooting weapons, like the constant and the repetitiveness of the micro abrasions on the brain and the organs. That's what we didn't find out until later. And that's what you start to see more restrictions now, but we're dealing with, millions of veterans who have been affected by this.
Especially the machine gunners, I imagine, man. Those guys that just constantly were training on the 50 cals and the big weapons, man.
And those are still, you don't need to fire a Carl Gustav or set off a Claymore, a strip charge on a door to have that kind of blast. Whatever. I mean, it is the micro abrasions can be repetitiveness from, like you said, the heavy machine gunners, the 50 cals. Exactly.
Wow. That's see that is a lot of stuff that I think is very new developments, right? And that's why you said they have limitations in now, right? I mean, there's
especially for the ground, your combat arms folks. And I'm sorry, not to diminish everybody. The combat arms, so they're just exposed to this more. That my recommendation was, at least if you can just get 0% at the VA for TBI, that will set you up later in life if they do come back and say, okay, you're a heavy gunner or all these explosions or something. Yes, you there's something not right there, and they can make the service disabled connection.
See, and I think that's something that we're starting to also, new developments now are starting to say, hey, just because he didn't get out with the ailment doesn't mean that something that he did isn't creating something later down the road, right? It just may not be visible, or is such an ailment that they can't really tell right off rip, especially when you're young, you're in your 20s and you're still feeling really good, then you get into your like 40s and stuff and you're like,
things start creaking.
You get up, it sounds like someone's playing the drums, and
Yes, you're right. It's the invisible wounds that my recommendation is like, okay, claim it. Say you're exposed. It's like breathing in all the plastics from overseas, right? You have no idea what's going on in your lungs, but claim it, because if you do develop a cancer or something down the line, like you want to have some support or some help there that you can get. But Alex, I think I cut you off.
No, all good. I think a very important takeaway is on the part to be very aware of, in the way Brian just said, the things that one is exposed to and one suffers from can only manifest at times much later. And certainly that is true with trauma and the way the body and the heart and the soul absorb it. And sometimes these things are too concentrated to come out, and for one to be aware of them and to help heal oneself early. It takes a while. I mean, as a very, I hope, short vignette, there was a powerful story of a World War II combat veteran who came home, put his gear and stuff in a box in the attic, and didn't talk about it with his wife or children or grandchildren for decades. By chance, he started to go to a meditation class, and he found an ability to have some peace inside of himself. And he came home one day and sat at the kitchen table and told his wife for the first time what he endured and how it was to come back. Thank God for him and them, it happened before he passed away. There are ways that these things can come out later and also be healed. And on the very positive side, what we spent so much time trying to do is bring resources and a sense of where to go to look for things, both in our book in a very practical way, but also in the annexes of our book, which we posted on our website, which is heroes-journey.net. And we try and have these things be very practical and cover the waterfront and give veterans and their spouses a sense of what these things are about. So we unpack these ridiculously complicated medical things, but make them ones that one can act on to go get some healing about. The medicine and the therapies and the healing available today are drastically more improved than they were 5 or 10 years ago. So we would say there's always reason for hope about these things.
Yeah, man. Now, do you guys have plans on writing any other books? Where do you guys go from here? I mean, you guys have put a lot of work and effort into this. Is it just push, or are you guys going to try to see how this does, get some feedback from it, and then you're going to spin off from there and kind of see what the next step is, or do you guys one and done?
No, I think there's always, well, as medicine develops, since we're talking about this, there's always going to be revisions to the book for that.
Okay.
Whatever new programs there are. And, we hope that, one of our biggest hopes out of this is that you traditionally look at the TAPS program, right? I think it's 1 day DOD, 2 days VA, that either lengthen that or get some other programs out there, some online resources well in advance for that. So that's one of our hopes, is this book is kind of a calling to redo that whole process to where people actually take value and benefit from it and can go do something.
Do they invite veterans and stuff to these checking out things? I mean, because that'd almost be a good thing to have some of these guys out that are veterans. It's what's funny, man, is when we're in, a lot of times we almost make fun of veterans, because look at those guys over there. They got the hats on, the tattoos, and the flags going, and then later on we all end up becoming that guy. You know what I mean? It's just funny. Yes. But while you're in, you almost don't want to. You try your best, to have the low reg haircuts and stuff like that, and
you just
then when you get out, you're almost that motivator guy that you should have been when you were in.
Right. Yeah. All of a sudden regulations mean something now, right? When you're out.
Right.
Oh. Yeah, that's what they meant by shine your shoes. Yeah. No, you absolutely, you bring up some really good points. And it's, once we leave, that's that loss of a community, loss of identity all of a sudden, right? Now we start reaching towards those things oh yes, now I get it. Now I want to kind of conform to this, upholding the standards.
Identity. It becomes your identity later on, right?
Identity.
Yeah. And that's why you hear a lot of people don't make it your identity. Yeah.
But what people don't understand is, but even the day you raise your hand, you take the oath, take your oath, and you step into that uniform, that's just 1 day closer to the transition. That is inevitable.
It's for everybody.
It is for
everybody. Has to get out. There's nobody that can stay in their entire life. We all have to join that
long line of veterans that goes all the way back to the Revolutionary War. And it's a privilege, right? Because if you serve with honor and dignity and great nobility and all this, then yes, stand proudly amongst that line. But I do understand the jokes. You're like, oh, that would never be me. Yeah,
I think it happens a lot.
It does.
A lot of people that are in, they don't really think about that flip side. Oh, I'm going to get out and be that old guy. I'm going to be that, that veteran that's going to the veteran coffees and stuff with everybody,
Yeah. I agree.
It's just, man, I appreciate, like I said, what you guys are doing, because these type of things are needed. And then, and there can't be really enough of them, because everybody learns a certain way, or, we all learn differently. Some of us are visual learners. Some of us read something and we can learn from it. Everybody kind of has a different approach of learning. So you guys are just providing more avenues, and hey, you guys have obviously put so much effort into this that you got real life experience. And that's a very important thing, because a lot of us that go seek help, we're seeking help from someone who has no clue really what we've been through. They just been through school, learn how to kind of deal with certain things, but they never really were there for that physical. It's different, man, when you feel the rounds, when you feel the explosions, and you can, you feel it through your body, and it's different than the fake rounds and some of the things that we get during training. You just can't emulate a lot of that until it really happens. And then, like I said, trying to talk to someone who doesn't understand, we already have trust issues with a lot of folks when we get out and stuff like that in general. Yes. And so when you're putting us in front of someone we may not trust, we may not be 100% transparent. And so we're not going to get the help we really need, because we're not. The only way you're going to get 100% help is just you got to lay it out on the line. These are all the things I'm going through. And some of it might sound really off the wall to someone, but you want to get it fixed, you got to throw it out there so they can see it and know how to fix it. But if you don't tell them what's in that brain, they can't see what's in that brain.
Raising your hand to get help is a sign of courage and strength. It's not a sign of weakness.
Right.
These lines came from Tom Satterley, who was, among other things, one of the heroes of the Battle of Mogadishu. He's recently been on Sean Bryan, amazing person, but he has lived and is a phenomenal model for the idea of having the strength and presence to sit in his vulnerability. And as a result, he is a model for tremendous courage for everyone. I think that I'd go back to one quick thing in what we've seen and what we have hoped to do in our own lives. And I say this with humility as the civilian part of the team. The choice for veterans doesn't have to be, am I going to stay in a mindset that I'm still in and wear tactical clothes and walk around as if I'm looking for danger and risk, or somehow shed my military identity, which is not really possible and would not be meaningful. I think that many folks we have seen who have done so, I think, with that we very much admire and look up to because of how they've lived their lives and how effective they've been at this, is they incorporate the parts of their military experience and their identity in a new identity, but they never leave that. So we can spot this a mile away. I flew here from San Diego. I knew that there were 3 veterans sitting in front of me. They didn't have anything on them, but I could tell by their bearing, their sense of courtesy, their decency, how they stood. They were veterans. So I went and talked to them. And I think that what I saw was a way that people can incorporate these things and have it be a part of their journey and their story that is very powerful and is inspiring, especially for us civilians.
That's outstanding. You know, I really do appreciate you guys dedicating basically a lot of your life. This is a commitment, man. You guys have made a commitment to this book and to helping people. It's very selfless, and but I also see you know, it's a big mission for you guys both for your own reasons, right? And that's, like I said, I appreciate you guys. Is there anything else you guys would like to share with us about the book, or let's talk about where to find it? Let's get everybody get out there, get themselves a copy.
So very timely. The book hits the shelves on the 28th of January, just next week. So,
dang, okay,
yeah.
All right, man. Damn, man, you guys are getting wow, man. So you guys, you guys got to be like, because I mean, man, 5 years and stuff. Like, tell me, you guys aren't like, what emotions are you guys going through that I didn't even realize when I looked at it, it hadn't dropped yet.
Yeah, this is very exciting for us because this is kind of the build up before we're released. Given the timeliness of just our discussion, Brian. But I think there's a sense of pride and accomplishment of what we've put out there, but just the feedback we've gotten from folks who've been able to read some of the the pre-release stuff has been phenomenal, and we know that there's been a surge in demand to get to the book. So I would say order it quickly. I know they'll print more, but the research we've done, it's best to get it into the hands of folks that need it today.
That's outstanding, man. Wow. I got to imagine you guys are super. Yeah. The emotions are out to be real. Nervous, a mix of emotions, man. 5 years.
We want to make an impact. We want to make a difference. For your listeners that are not able to see your podcast but can hear it, the name of our book is Warrior to Civilian, the Field Manual for the Hero's Journey. It's available on Amazon. You can go to our website, which has other resources called heroes-journey.net. For reasons we don't quite understand, the publisher didn't print enough books. So if folks want it, we would urge them to order it. I say that, I hope you know that we're not making a dime off this book. The publishing business is an interesting one, but we're not doing it to make money. Yeah. I think from my perspective, Rob, and I'd like to pass it to you in a second, a parting thought is Rob and I have both had dark days, and so we know what that means. For folks that are out there, whether you're military or not, whether you're a veteran or a spouse or a military kid, there's always hope. There's always folks around you that will embrace you and support you, maybe give you tough love, but there's never a reason to quit. And today there's resources and there's folks like Brian who are doing amazing work. Never quit, never give up. There's always a moment for inspiration and hope just around the corner.
Yeah, it's awesome, Alex. I would say that, from your deepest wounds can rise your greatest purpose. Remember that.
Oh, I like
Don't
that.
count yourself out. And then my parting words, I think, would be Churchill. When you're going through hell, keep going.
Oh, hell yeah. I love it. I'll be sure to attach your guys' links and stuff in the description of the show, where you guys will be able to find the book and all that. If you guys aren't a part of my Every Day's a Saturday Facebook group, I'd encourage you guys to go there, drop your book there. You guys are more than welcome to spam away. It's there for it's there for you guys to, I've literally watched books get sold there. Coffee got sold there. I mean, so
Awesome.
That's what it's there for, man. That's what I want. I'm a big cheerleader for my brothers and my sisters. I'm a big cheerleader for mental health and getting everybody on a great path so they can be the best versions of themselves for the rest of the world. I've been blessed to be surrounded by real, true heroes of this country, and I'm blessed that I still get to sit here and sit right in front of Rob. You're an American hero. I'm just proud that I get to be a part of all this, and I want to be a light in the darkness, and I think that we all have a light to ourselves, and we just got to start shining them bright and get so that way everybody can start moving towards these lights, and then we can, the brighter we can shine, the bigger purpose we can be out there, so I thank you guys so much for taking your time to come on, share your stories, share your book. Like I said, it is much needed. And I hope that people out there, you don't just have to be a veteran. If you're a family member of a veteran, there's a lot of people could benefit from this book. And these guys have dedicated 5 years to it and put a lot of research into it. So this book is definitely going to be helping a lot of people out there. And I can't thank you guys enough. And I hope you guys know how much you guys are going to save some lives by this, so
Thank you.
All your work and dedication, it will pay off, whether it's monetary or whether it's just saving lives, man. But one way or another, it's going to be a big payout for you guys. Thank you again. And I hope you guys have an amazing day. We'll stay in touch. If you guys want to hold tight, I'll let you guys know when this drops and all that stuff. If you guys got to go, I'll just email it to you. But either way, thank you guys so much.
Thanks, Brian.
All right, thank you. All right, friends and family. Well, that goes ahead and rocks out another great interview. Wow. This book sounds amazing. I definitely think I'm going to go ahead and pick myself up a copy as well. I'm not much of a reader, but these type of things deals with real life. It could be very beneficial to me, I'm sure, still to this day. I think, healing is a lifelong journey. Sometimes some of us never completely ever heal. There will always be wounds there. But hey, let's try to utilize some of these tools out there that can help us. Don't be afraid to reach out. Get some help if you guys need it. Reach out to your brothers, your sisters, Crisis Lifeline. Don't be afraid to reach out. We all are there for you with open arms. So have an amazing day out there, guys. Don't let the day kick your ass. Make sure you're out there kicking it. Until next time, we'll see you guys.
Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.